Hello and welcome to Unleashed. I'm your host, Will Bachman. You can find the show notes and the full transcript of this episode at umbrex.com/unleashed. I'm delighted to be here today with Matthew Hunt, who runs a firm called Demandii, and I'll have him give you an explanation of it better than I can. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Matthew, tell us about Demandii.
Sure. So we help busy B2B executives create all of their stackable content for LinkedIn from a single monthly interview.
Okay, so break that down for me. Say that again. So, snackable content. So, this is posts. It sounds like from what you said, you'd interview an executive once a month, and then from that one interview, you would create a whole series of LinkedIn posts.
Yeah, you got it exactly. So most of our clients, their biggest obstacle is time. So it's not even that they don't know how to create content or want to create content. It's just that they just don't have enough time to do it all. So we created a way that we can sit down with them in a structured way, interview them privately, and then we'll go away and their 1 hour turns into our 40 hours where we slice and dice that video and turn it into little shorts, short videos, short audiograms, short text posts, short graphic designs. And we send it all back to them and they can very easily in just 30 minutes or less approve it and or provide us feedback. We'll work on it until they are happy with it. Once we get an approval, we syndicate it across the socials for them. Our primary channel that we focus on is LinkedIn because most of them are B2B. That's where they want to be known and seen.
And tell me about the types of people who are your customers.
Yeah, generally speaking, they're B2B. And again, they're usually the CEO or the founder. Occasionally, they might be another executive or C-suite individual. They probably are something like an agency. They could be a SaaS owner. They could be a consultant who now works as like a fractional C-suite individual, as like a fractional CMO or CTO or CIO. Sometimes they used to work at the big four consulting firms, and now they do consulting on their own. They might have a small practice. They could be a law firm owner that sells B2B, as long as they sell to other businesses and they probably sell some sort of high ticket item, whether it's consulting, professional services, or software, they would be an ideal customer for us. We help those individuals.
Okay. And tell me a bit about the types of posts or other sorts of content that you are helping them to create from their 1 hour interview.
Yeah, so we'll help them create all types of formats of content, from videos to audiograms to a text piece to a graphic or image piece. And the reason why we do that is you got to think about a song on a piano. If you just hit one key all the time, it's not a very exciting song. But if you play all the keys, well, then it gets a lot more exciting. And different people like different content. You don't know what it's going to be. So serving it up in different formats is important. However, that being said, we find in general from our clients that the most impactful content for them is usually video based. And the reason why is because people can consume the whole you. They can see you, they can witness you, they can hear you, they can feel you. You basically get to put out your vibe and then you get to attract your tribe.
And maybe can you give us a sanitized example of one of your customers and what sorts of like specific headlines might you create for that person, or is it like providing a template or a resource for their audience, or is it more talking about current events in the industry, or is it more their product or how to solve a certain problem? Like, what do you find? What sort of posts are you doing?
Sure. Well, why don't we start at the 10,000 foot view and then we'll go into the 1,000 foot view and then the 100-foot view on how we go about doing this and what other people might want to do. So the first thing you need to understand is the different types of content that you might want to create. We prefer to to talk about it in this way. We call it the ACEs method. So A stands for authority type content. This is anything that you want to be known as an authority. So if you're an expert at marketing, let's talk about marketing. Is it a sub niche of marketing? Is it SEO? Is it a sub niche of that where you are really good at doing technical SEO or bottom of funnel SEO, or maybe you do digital PR? Doesn't really matter what it is, but figure out what it is. Maybe you own more than one business and you're an expert at many things. So that's okay. You can talk about leadership or running businesses or being an entrepreneur, but we want to figure out what it is. And we want to create content around those pillars. Usually you want 3 core pillars to talk about when it comes to authority content. C stands for connect content. Now, this is anything that hits the heart, the gut, or the funny bone. So as we all know, people only buy from people that they know, like, and trust. Well, they can't trust you if they don't like you. This is that content that makes people like you. E stands for engage. So you want to create engagement-based content. You do not need to be the knower of all things. Sometimes you just need to be a good host to the party. So asking probing questions or starting conversations on social media is a great way of building a relationship at a one-to-many level. And it relieves you of having to come up with every idea all the time. And a lot of times, if you ask the right question, you can learn a lot about what your ideal audience wants, and it sparks other content later on. And the last piece, S, stands for show. And show content is literally what I'm talking about. Show before and after, sneak peek behind the scenes, show the awards and the amazing things that you're doing. We don't want to tell and sell. We want to show and sell. And if you follow the ACEs method and you use the different content formats, you're going to create content that is compelling and interesting to a wide variety of people and will speak to, ideally, your ideal audience. Now, that being said, let's get to the 100-foot view on how do you create content now that is interesting and compelling and is helpful, and content that you're going to look back on and be proud of one day. And the way you do that is you don't make it about you. Nobody cares about you. We all tune into our favorite radio station, which is WIFM, right? Which stands for What's in It for Me. And so you want to create content that is about your ideal audience, your ideal customer, or the people that you're looking to help. So the best content creators in the world are actually just really good coaches or really good teachers. So if you like teaching and if you like coaching, then you're going to love creating content online. And what we want to do is we want to think about a problem that your ideal customer or your audience has. And you'll say, hey, are you this individual? For example, are you a CTO and you're struggling with this specific problem? That becomes your hook. You always lead in with the problem that they have, because that's going to get them to perk up and pay attention to your content. But then we need to go a little deeper and we need to agitate. We need to talk about what are all the bad things that happen when you don't solve this problem. The reason you do that is people are not going to pay attention to your solution until they know that you've been there before yourself. You need to be able to describe their problems almost better than they can describe themselves. And once you do that, they're going to be like, wow, this guy was in our meeting last week. And then you're going to tell them it's not their fault. You're going to absolve them of that problem. And the reason why you're going to absolve them is because they want to recognize that this is not my fault. If you tell them they're stupid and they're dumb, they're not going to listen to your solution. So you need to tell them it's not your fault. Here's why. And then you tell them, here's how I have helped a customer just like you solve this problem before. Here's how I have solved this problem for myself in the past. Or here's how I would solve this problem if I had this problem. Any one of those scenarios is great because you're describing it in first person and from experience, as opposed to giving advice. It makes you very likable. And when you can do that in detail, you're leaving breadcrumbs of evidence that you've done this before. And when you have breadcrumbs of evidence that you've done this before, it shows that you have experience. And when you've experienced, it proves that you're an expert. And when you're an expert, people want to hire experts. Now, there is a formula to this. So let's go down to the very, further rule of what this is. The formula is called a very basic copywriting formula, which is called PAS. It just stands for people plus problem. A is agitate plus absolve, okay? And S is sell with a story. or sell by showing them how you solve that. That could be a screen capture video or a demo of your software. It doesn't really matter. But if you do the thing, you follow the PSA formula, problem, agitate, solve, you will create content that is one, A, helpful, and two, that you're proud of. And if you do those things, you're going to attract a lot of attention in the right way.
Now, you have a B2B LinkedIn demand generation OS operating system course. I'm not sure if you're still offering that. I believe I signed up for it. I don't believe, I know I signed up for it and I have access to it. Is that still something that you're offering? Tell us a little bit about the course that you created.
Yeah, there's three ways that people can work with me. So there's the do-it-yourself, done with you, or done for you programs. So do-it-yourself is a course. It's free. Go sign up. You go through it yourself. Most people who are really busy don't have the time to do that. But if you do, basically, if you don't have money to be able to pay me, or you have a team that you want to train or something like that, that's a great opportunity for you, right? However, most people need done with you or done for you. And done with you is literally that we will help you create your content with you. Done for you is where we get right into doing your marketing, help you create lead magnets and do LinkedIn events and create inbound, interest in what you sell. And so you just depend on what budget is right for you. Obviously, the cost goes up as you work through the programs. Do it yourself is free. Done with you is probably $2,500 a month. And done for you runs about $6,000 per month. And that does not include your ad spend.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the done for you. What are some additional services that you provide? You mentioned like creating lead magnets and so forth. Walk through some of the other services.
Yeah, a lot of times people start creating content online, which is awesome. They have a network, and so it's a great way of staying top of mind, but it doesn't necessarily always lead to getting discovered or baiting people into your marketing funnels. So what we'll do is we'll take that content and pair it with a lead magnet. A lead magnet just means marketing collateral, and the marketing collateral should be something that makes your ideal customer instantly better or more awesome in 10 minutes or less. And what we'll do is we'll take that content you created plus the lead magnet and sponsor it with LinkedIn ads. And because here's the great thing on B2B businesses, they are not invisible. We if they log into LinkedIn, we can reach them. So you just got to pay to play. And so if you are targeting, CMOs at manufacturing companies with revenues of, 10 million to 100 million, well, I can target them. Or even if you have a list, you can give me your CRM list, or you can scrape a list or buy a list. I can upload and get a matched audience. And I can guarantee every time your ideal buyer logs into LinkedIn that they see your helpful content. And so that's the next step. And if they take the marketing qualified lead magnet, right, they raise their hand and say, yes, I would like that, please. You now know who they are and you can deliver that to them. Now, your goal is not to start selling them. Your goal is actually to push them to your long form content, because it's long form content where you build demand and trust with people, where they spend more than 1 minute with you, where they spend 15, 20, 30 minutes to 60 minutes with you. That's how you position yourself as a strategic advisor. And so we will help you create your LinkedIn events that do this. And that's kind of like an interview style or a webinar style type thing that you do. And this is the full funnel. So just remember, short form content's job is to stay top of mind with your existing network, to get discovered by your ideal buyers, and to bait people into your marketing funnels. Long form content's job is to build trust and demand, and you do that through LinkedIn events. And if you do those things, on the other side of that is, sales qualified leads, pipeline, and hopefully if you're good at selling, you can close some customers. And so that is the part that is the marketing part. So think of it as like creating content is helping, marketing the content is the done for you services that generates you new business or demand.
Tell us about LinkedIn events. What have you seen effective at that? What's the right duration? What's the format? Is it a single speaker? Is it two people? What time of week? What time of day? What are some tips around LinkedIn events that you have? How often?
Yeah, it's great. I think that you need to do at least one event once every 2 months is a minimum. You can do them once every month if you like. You don't need to do it any more often than that. You need 4 weeks to promote an event. The biggest mistake people do is they put an event up and they don't promote it. It's like anything in content in general. 20% of budgets go to creating content, 80% goes to promoting it. And so you need to promote the event. Same thing with like your short form content. If you don't sponsor with ads, you're missing out on the biggest part of the opportunity, which is getting it seen. If people don't see it and they don't show up to the event, there is no transformation that takes place. Now, when it comes to events, the length depends on who you're selling into. So For example, if you sell into C-suite individuals, your event length should be about 15 minutes. They're not going to spend any more 15 minutes. You do a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am case study is what you do. You show them the results you drive and how it will affect their business as well too. However, if you sell into the chain of command that's a little bit lower down, okay, like maybe a marketing manager or something like that, well, then it can be 30 minutes to an hour long. No event should ever be any longer than an hour. And even though it's an hour, your offer should come in about 30 or 40 minutes. Or if it's 15 minutes, your offer should come in about 10 minutes. You don't want to make it at the beginning and you don't want to make it at the end because it takes a minute for people to join and also people lap off at the end. Now, when it comes to LinkedIn events, remember, even though it's live, half your people are going to watch the replay if you follow up with them. So you'll find that, if you have 1,000 attendees, you'll have 200 that watch it. 10% will watch it live, 10% will watch the replay. Generally speaking, decision makers watch the replay. They don't watch it live. They're busy. They're in meetings. Things come up. And so those are some tips around the events. The day of the events and when you should do it, the best time is Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I preference usually Tuesday or Wednesday. It skips all the holidays that happen on Mondays and Fridays. Also, when people are winning the week, they're more likely to show up to the event as opposed to the end of the week. And people might sign up, but when they're not winning the week, they go, something's got to go on my calendar. It's going to be your event.
Okay.
Keep the events on LinkedIn as opposed to making them sign up for a Zoom. You're going to have way more attendees that come, and then you follow up via the DMs on LinkedIn as opposed to necessarily, trying to capture the email address and make them go through all these hoops. You can always use all these services that are really easy to be able to find the email address. It's so cheap today. If you have the first name, last name, the company name, which you have from the attendee list, you can just go and use a tool or an API tool or all kinds of tools that can find the email address. Why create that friction for people? Also, when you use those tools, if you're using a LinkedIn opt-in, it ends up being their personal email instead of their work email because most people sign up to their LinkedIn with their personal email because it's a personal account, and really you want the work email. So it just depends of what you want. So those are a few tips on running events that should be helpful.
And do you recommend events with just one person or with sort of a discussion style?
Depends. So it depends on like your business and where you're at. So I love using events for a great way of pulling in your team. So a lot of times we'll do founder-led or executive-led or CEO-led content, but then they're like, hey, I have this really smart team, but I don't want to go and like have everybody doing this. Also, everybody's not comfortable with it. Well, this is a great way of doing it. So I love doing panels. So where you bring in 2 or 3 of your team members in a structured way, and we do an interview with them in a structured way. It's almost like a interview style / webinar. It's not as cheesy as an infomercial, but you get the idea. Then you can slice and dice that and create short content for your company page, and you can give it to them to syndicate out. And then you still create long form content that showcases how smart you are. However, if you sell a tool, like no one cares about your team and how smart they are. So that's if you're consulting or doing professional services, like that makes sense. But if you sell a tool, we should show your tool. So it just depends on what it is. If you don't have a team, well, then it should just be you, right? Now, if you want to go further, you could go and interview your customers as a way of doing it as well, too. Or you could even interview your prospects. So EcoBait works. Now, the order you want to do that in is, generally speaking, do it yourself, then do it with your team, then do it with your customers, then do it with your prospects. And the reason why you do it in that order is because it gets more complicated and harder to do the wider the net goes. Obviously, you can control your time and your message very easily. You can control your team's time and message a little less. You can control your client's time even less. And then strangers, you'll know how many times I've rescheduled with you before we got this meeting in. It's very hard to do that. It's like corralling cats. And so just based on energy and time and effort, I recommend that you kind of focus on yourself. That's the way I would think about it, but all of those work.
I imagine that you take a look at the LinkedIn profile of your clients and help them optimize that. So the goal of the content is to probably get someone to visit the profile of your client, and then sort of take further steps, connect with them, send them a message, etc. What are some of the tips that you have for updating the profile of your clients?
Yeah, it's a great question. So So counterintuitively, the profile is not as important as most people think, because less than 2 or 3% of people who view your content will actually go back to your profile page. They only go back there once they're actually considering doing business with you. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have an optimized page, but let's just look at the 80/20 of this. You got to get, 20% right to really nail it. And I'll talk about the other 80% as well too, but the key things are this. You must have a great profile photo. We judge people based on what they look like. Okay, so you can go to a website called Photo Feeler, and you can split test your headshot just to see if you're likable or not. It's free. There's no harm in doing that. Get a great profile photo. Generally speaking, it should just be you looking at the camera, smiling, and pretty much like a head and shoulders shot. Don't have something weird. I mean, look, you can do weird things if that's your brand, but like, don't be posing on a Lambo. Don't be a crop from your wedding shot. Also, don't catfish people. It shouldn't be a photo of you 10 years ago and you don't look like that when you're on camera. So have some continuity, that if they were to speak to you today, you would look like that today, right? So if for example, we have a beard today and it's all gray, and your headshot is no beard and not gray, probably need to update your headshot, right? So that's the main thing. Next thing is your headline. So it's a headline underneath of what you do. That's your opportunity to tell people who you help and how you help. Now, it's not appropriate for everybody. Like, if you're Elon Musk and you said that, it would be weird. You're not going to be like, I help people drive energy efficient cars, right? To make the environment. Or I help people, I'm planning on getting people to Mars. Like, that's weird. You just put CEO, right? But if you're someone like me who's trying to do selling online, a smaller brand, you would put in who I help and how I help. And the reason you do that is because when people consume your content, when you're writing comments, when you're creating content, that's what they're going to see. That's the main thing they're going to see. They're going to see your profile image, and they're going to see that hook. Now, if they do get back to your profile page, you want to have the header image, and the header image is an image. Just remember, we are able to process images faster than words, and therefore you should be able to, in that image, quickly articulate who you help and how you help, or what your brand does, or the feeling of your brand. And that's the stuff that's above the fold. So if you do those three things, you will kill it. Now, the things below the fold are important too. So you should write a bio in first person. It's an opportunity to sell the results that you've driven for other people you help. And you should write it in first person. It's weird if you write it in third person. We know you wrote it. Nobody else wrote it for you. You're not at a play. They're not doing a bio on you. This is not the History Channel. This is you writing it. So please write it in first person. Underneath the bio section, there's an opportunity to do a featured section. You should use it. Most people have it turned off. This is a great opportunity to make an ask. This is usually where you put your marketing magnet, right? Or your lead magnet in there. You can make an offer. I just put it back to my website because I'm super lazy, and that's really what I want people to do. But you choose what you want to do. Use that feature section. Use it with intention so that you can get more clicks back to the thing that you do. Below that is typically your career. Your career also has a section that you can sell. If you have case studies and testimonials, you should attach them to the thing that you've done. Again, show people the results that you've driven. Underneath that is recommendations. If you don't have recommendations, give recommendations. That's the best way to get recommendations. You should try to have recommendations from the current year that you're in, at least 2. Most people, if they do recommendations, it's from 10 years ago. Nobody cares about yesterday's home runs. You win today with getting on bases today and getting on home runs. So you should have regular practice to go get regular recommendations. I think I have like 80 something, and probably given like 100 myself. So give to get and ask for them regularly. It's great social proof when other people can see that you have helped people that look like them. It's also great for a rainy day when you're feeling low and down and all beaten up and that you're not very good at things. Go look and read your recommendations. You'll feel a lot better about yourself.
Amazing. Um, what impact do you see recommendations having? Do they actually make a difference?
I think that they do make a difference when someone's in the buying cycle. So what it does is it removes those questions about, can you give me some references? And I can see your references. They're right there, right? And so I try to always remove all those things. I have video testimonials. I'll repurpose those recommendations on LinkedIn on my website. I make it as easy as possible for people not have to confirm whether I'm good at what I do. So I think you should too. And even if you're an employee, you should do these things. It makes it so much easier to get hired. Like, wouldn't it be nice if I was hiring someone, I went there and there's all these relevant recommendations talking about how good you are? Like, I think this is incredible. And just, even though what I do for CEOs and founders, like, honestly, everybody should do this if they care about their career. There is nobody who should be ignoring LinkedIn, and there should be nobody who is not professionally helping others and paying it forward. This is much more like coaching and teaching and helping people learn from your mistakes. And if you do that, you're going to create really interesting, compelling work. It's not about like actually selling and showing off or becoming a creator, an influencer, posting platitudes. That's just silly. And if you just think of it that way, it takes all the pressure off, and it's a lot more fun to do.
Matthew, for listeners that are interested in potentially first signing up for the do-it-yourself, your course, or potentially exploring your services, where would you point them online?
Yeah, you just come on over to demandii.com and you'll find it all there. There's very few links and very few things you can do except for either reach out and talk to me or join the course and community. And so it's Demandii is just spelled with demand, and then it ends with two I. So DEMANDII.com. I know it's a bit of a funny spelling, but I was cheaping out on buying a more expensive domain, and that was my little workaround.
All right. Well, all right. We will include that link in the show notes. Matthew, thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks for having me.